for the Life and Legacy Workshop, shining a spotlight on life and legacy community leaders. I am Linda Mizell, Executive Director of the Jewish Community Foundation of Greater Mercer. Let me first acknowledge the Jewish Federation of Princeton Mercer Bucks for its generous financial support of the Life and Legacy programming this year. We also extend tremendous gratitude to the Harold Grinspoon Foundation for its ongoing financial support and guidance, and especially to Arlene Schiff, who continues to address our community and advise it and make connections, including the introductions to our panelists this evening. Before introducing our esteemed guests, I would like to explain the format for this evening's program. We will hear general reflections from our panelists, and then they will be part of a roundtable conversation moderated by Wally Yosefat, who is a member of the Board of Trustees of the Jewish Community Foundation. There will be an opportunity for our audience to ask questions. Please use the chat box at any time to submit your questions. And now I would like to introduce Mark Merkovitz, Executive Director of the Jewish Federation of Princeton Mercer Bucks, who will introduce our panelists. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Linda. And I'd like to start out by saying how proud we are of the work you and Amy and your team does day in and day out on the Life and Legacy program. You really, truly make it a success for everybody in our community. With that said, I'm honored to introduce our moderator and our panelists, and I'll start with our moderator, Walter Yosefat. He's a member of the Jewish Community Foundation, as Linda said, as a long-serving community leader in Somerset, Hunterdon, and Warren counties. He is immediate past president of Jewish Family Service and serves on the JFS Life and Legacy Committee up in his community. Wally is also a past board member of Temple Shalom. He has a career as a progressive chief information officer who works with complex companies across technology, industrial hospitality, and aerospace industries. Now for our esteemed panelists. Mindy Holland is from the Life and Legacy community in Northeast New York and in Greater Albany area. Mindy is chair-elect of the Jewish Federation of Northeastern New York, which my good friend Rob Kovac is the executive director of. She is currently campaign chair of Jewish Federation of Northeastern New York. Mindy serves as past president of Congregation Gates of Heaven in Schenectady, New York. She is a Life and Legacy Committee member and chair. Mindy has a career as a librarian, including serving as past president of Eastern New York School Librarian Association. Susan Costin is from Life and Legacy Community in Stamford, Connecticut. Susan is president of Temple Sinai in Stamford, Connecticut. She is on the board of directors of United Federation of Greater Stamford, New Canaan, and Darien, Connecticut. Susan is Life Legacy Committee member. She is also an appointed member of the Town of Darien Commission on Aging. Susan has a career in business, law, and finance in the financial services industry. Linda Moskowitz is from the Life and Legacy community in Phoenix, Arizona, where it's 76 and partly sunny right now. Linda is chair of United Synagogue of Conservative Judaism in the Pacific Southwest region. She is past president of Congregation Or Zion in Scottsdale, Arizona. Linda is on the Life and Legacy, or Lador Vador, committee member and chair. She was also Jewish youth director at Congregation Bethel and at Camp Ramah in Ojai, California. Linda has a 50-year career in nursing. Mindy, let's begin with your reflections.
So this is my 7th year on the Life and Legacy team. Our community's been at this, as I said, for 7 years. And so at the very beginning of this, we weren't sure what we could accomplish, but we've done quite well. I feel that it's important to bring up life and legacy whenever possible, whether that's with my work at Federation or within the Jewish community at my synagogue. When I first heard of philanthropy and endowed giving, I assumed it was only for people with mansions. I didn't believe we had at our congregation more than one family in the whole congregation who could leave a legacy gift. But after 7 years, we have 75 Life and Legacy members. I think it's a triple win program. It helps the organization in the long term. It makes people feel connected to the congregation now. And we're doing a mitzvah because it makes our donors feel good about themselves. I became Life and Legacy Chair after I was done being immediate past president, and it allowed me to connect with people on a deeper level without getting involved in the day-to-day drama of running the organization. Thank you.
Susan, you want to go next? And
Sure.
Then to Linda.
Thank you. Thank you, Walter. And thank you everyone for coming out tonight. It's a pleasure to be here and share with you some of my experiences with Life and Legacy. I'm from the Stamford, Connecticut area, and in the fall of 2019, I went to an informational meeting for the entire Jewish community in Stamford, New Canaan, and Darien to talk about whether we might want to become one of the newest cohorts for Life and Legacy. I and a couple of other congregants from Temple Sinai said, yes, we'd love to sign up. We've already had a program to try to get legacy donors, and anything that the Grinspoon Foundation could add, we thought would be a big value add. Well, we filled out the application. Stamford was accepted with about 9 other organizations in Stamford or in the greater Stamford area. And lo and behold, in the spring of 2020, shortly after we were accepted, you all know what happened. COVID hit. And that added a bit of a challenge because we were ready to start. And then the idea of doing person-to-person meetings was not something that we were able to do for at least the first year, I think maybe 2 years. But we muddled through. We did things through Zoom. We got a lot of support from Arlene and the Grinspoon Foundation and followed their rubric. And we added to what was a meager endowment. We pretty much doubled it. Some of it was luck, I want to say. We had a couple of congregants, one who was thinking about adding to a fund that he and his wife had created and turning it into an endowment fund, and added a substantial amount to it. That all counted because it hadn't been an endowment fund before. We had the children of a congregant who wanted to set up an endowment to do an annual lecture series in honor of their mother. And that also added to our endowment because it came during the process. So I don't want to claim that we went out and sought that, but certainly the manna from heaven fell, and we were happy to include that in our totals. I guess we were asked to talk a little bit about how does Life and Legacy resonate with me personally. And I would want to share with you the pitch that I give to my board, which is before being president of the board, I was the treasurer for a few years, and I'd been recycled. I had been treasurer before. They tend to bring us back every now and again. And the pitch I gave to my board is like, you don't have to be rich. And think about it. We've got 20 people in the room. And if each of you can pledge $5,000, that's $100,000. And depending on what our membership commitment is, that's like adding 2 new member families in perpetuity. So think about that. If we can do that every year, how much pressure we can take off of our operating budget. And that's really the goal. We'd love to have. Our rabbi recently said, yeah, I'd love to have 7 million in our endowment. Well, maybe we'll get there. I don't know. And I would just want to encourage people, if you haven't been involved, if you're thinking about becoming a leader, I am not someone who is in my comfort zone asking people for money and doing fundraising. It's like, I don't want to do that. I'd rather do something else. But it's easier than you think because you're not asking people to give money now. You're just saying, can you remember us either in your will? It's easy to do. You could do it in an IRA. You don't even have to go to a lawyer. There's plenty of support and documents and information from the Grinspoon Foundation that will help you along. And I will add that their incentives do help. There are financial incentives, and I think we've hit the mark every year in the 4 years that we've been doing it, and it adds, could be $5,000, $7,500, depending on how well you do in getting letters of intent. And those incentives will help because it gives you the impetus to get it done before a certain date because you want to get that money in. And it's also helps a little bit with the fundraising part where you say to, one of your congregants, I need to talk to 3 more people to have a conversation. And if I get 3 more conversations, we're going to get an extra $200. And they'll say, sure, I'll talk to you. So just think about that. It's not as hard as you think. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan. Linda?
So thank you for having me this evening. I may be in Phoenix, but I'm a Jersey girl at heart, so I'm delighted to be with you. My introduction to Life and Legacy started in 2016 when I was president of my synagogue. Our local federation, now known as the Center for Jewish Philanthropy, approached us to apply for an incentive grant with the Grinspoon Foundation and to be part of our community's first cohort to build an endowment to ensure our synagogue always remained a vibrant and spiritual home for generations to come. It was an opportunity that just made sense, a no-brainer. Hence, we applied, we were accepted as one of the original 12 agencies, and now 8 years later, I serve as chair of our Lador Vador Society, that is the name we use, where we have established a flourishing program at our synagogue. And I'm honored and delighted to say we remain a leader in our Life and Legacy program in our community. Again, in the same response, how does it resonate personally with me? Well, as a nurse, I learned very early in my career that the importance of relationship building. And as a past president of my congregation, relationship building continues to be part of my everyday fabric. It is these same relationship building skills that establishes a culture of trust, of honesty, and a feeling of both respect and value. And this has led to a growing partnership with our current and our future legacy donors. So in terms of you as leaders, I think it's safe to say that tonight's audience is probably full of leaders. And we also know that our various roles can often be challenging and at the same time so rewarding. But we as lay leaders have a unique opportunity to coach and guide and inspire others. We lead by example, and we foster a culture of excitement when we reach our goals. I believe one of the best parts of being a leader is watching our team's success and achievements, and there's great satisfaction in doing something really impactful that will leave not only a lasting impression, but a rich legacy that will make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda, Mindy, and Susan. Great opening remarks. When we first met, I had the opportunity to talk with each of you. I explained that as moderator, and especially here tonight, I am often what I consider to be the least smart person in the room. And therefore, it gives me the opportunity to ask questions, not only on my behalf, but on behalf of the audience, so that we can learn. And it's very clear from the first time that I talked with you that we have much to learn. You have much to give, as you have also given for a long period of time. So I want to jump into some questions, right? And I'll probably go for this first question, Mindy, then Susan, then Linda, for your thoughts. So Susan and Linda, you get a little bit more chance to think about it than putting Mindy here on the spot immediately. I assure you we'll mix it up so that Susan, you get your turn, and then Linda, you get your turn as well as we go through. One of the first questions that always comes to mind as I speak with experts and people who've done it and made it happen are, what are the 1 to 2 or 3 must-dos to be successful that you found to be successful? And you can also comment on, if possible, and in your experiences, are there 1 or 2 or 3 things that you would say, tried that, don't do that, right? Don't fall into the same trap. I'll let you answer it the way you want with whatever focus there. But again, Mindy, let's start with you. 1 to 2 things to must-dos, or 1 or 2 things to avoid.
So when I was at the very first training session for Life and Legacy in our community, we were told that almost any adult can be a Life and Legacy donor. The only people we wouldn't approach are people who have special needs children that they're caring for and will need to be cared for the rest of time. And at that meeting, there was a woman who banged her fist on the table and stood up and said, "How dare you? How dare you prejudge me? What if I do want to make a gift? What if I have the capacity to take care of my special needs adult child and leave a gift to the community?" And I was really struck by that the one thing that I try to avoid very consistently in this process is not prejudging people. It's our job to ask, to give them the honor of making the assumption that they might have the will, the desire, the capacity to do this mitzvah. And if they can't, it's up to them to say no, thank you. It's not up to us to prejudge. And that has led us to get some gifts that I never would have suspected. We have a gift from somebody who later was at a thank you event with us, and I overheard her talking about how she would kill for a washer and a dryer in her apartment. And I stopped and I said, "Excuse me, I don't mean to eavesdrop, but could you say that again?" And she repeated it and said it's just too much money for her to afford an apartment that would have its own washer and a dryer. So she's going to a laundromat. And she was able to make a legacy gift. It's truly an incredible blessing that people can do that. And she has been honored all of these years, along with people who are of much greater means. And it means a lot to her to be included in this list of philanthropists. So my number 1 thing is, don't prejudge. It's about the people having the agency to decide for themselves and having the courage to ask, because when I look at our list of now 75 donors and I try to find the commonalities between them, I can't. We have people with young kids, we have people with no kids, we have people in their 80s and 90s themselves, and we have people as young as in their 40s. We have people who are single and married. We have people who are Jewish and non-Jewish. We have people who live in our community and people who live on the other side of the country in California. The only thing that they have in common is that we ask them. So those are my 2 takeaways that I try to remind myself as I look at a name and I think, I'm going to call them, and I remember all of our successes and I say, yeah, I'm going to call them. I'm going to have a conversation. I'm going to build my relationship with them. And if it doesn't work, I've just gained a little knowledge about somebody and I say, thank you for taking the time with me, and I move on. And I don't take it as, an insult or anything. As long as we can have the conversation, I consider it a success. So thanks.
Wow, Mindy, way to start out the gate. That's a great one. Susan, that's a good challenge to you, right? Love your thoughts on this to go with Mindy's. And then
Yeah,
Linda,
thanks.
you're up next.
Thanks, Mindy. Those are great comments. I couldn't agree with you more. I guess, Walter, you asked a little bit about what are some of the must-dos, and here's one you may not have too much control over, but we're blessed at Temple Sinai to have a very healthy organization. In about a year or two after we started this process, we signed a continuing contract with our rabbi. We're growing, and honestly, that helps a lot. It's easy when things are healthy and growing, and I'm not sure that's something that's you can push a button on and do, but it does certainly help. The number two thing I said, we tended to go for the low hanging fruit. When you first start out, you could go through your list and you say, I know this person's going to be receptive. I know this one. I know this one. And that, that gets increasingly harder, but you'd be surprised how easy it actually is when you start out. The third thing I would recommend is to have a balanced committee. We have 5 of us, and some are longtime congregants, some are newer congregants, demographics, are over the range. We have some younger ones because you want to be able to reach into all those different demographics of your community. So it helps to have a good, balanced, and committed committee. And we do have regular committee meetings. That helps to put it on the calendar. And, it forces you, if it's on your calendar, to have that meeting I think we meet maybe once a quarter, which seems to be sufficient for getting our work done. And the last thing I want to mention, and I can't say enough about it, is stewardship. If you're new to this, you'll hear more about it. I want to give you a little anecdote about stewardship. I mentioned one of the donors we had that was the children of one of our congregants who set up the fund, an endowed fund that would be for a continuing lecture series. And I wrote them some personal notes on the things that we sent out, because I don't know the children personally, but I know the parents. And I just wrote a note about, I'm so thrilled. I've, loved your parents, known them forever, and what a great thing this is. And 2 weeks later, another $25,000 gift came in. I didn't ask for it, and I wasn't looking for it. But it was one of those things about stewardship. You can't do enough of it to keep those touch points current and active, and just looking for those personal connections with people. There was a question, Walter, in the chat that asked about something I said. Do you want me to address that later or now, or?
Yeah, let's come to it later, especially it'll be the first question I get to, Susan, in the open forum questions from.
Great, we'll do that.
Thank you so much. Keep that in mind, that question, right? So you can answer. Linda, before I turn to you, Mindy and Susan, both of you have touched on things that are both in your control and outside of your control. And one of the early takeaways is deal with the world and the realities of what you have, right? And go make something of it, whether you can control it or not, right? That's what life is about and what legacy is giving. Linda, right?
Wow, following these 2 ladies. But let me tell you, I agree with both what you said. Some of the must-dos for me and for our committee is when we meet with people, we need to be prepared. We really need to go into this knowing everything we can possibly know. So know your audience as well. And that goes along with the prejudging that Mindy had talked about. Try and know your audience. Create a level of excitement, appreciation. Show them how excited you are about this program. And then again, implement a meaningful stewardship program. I mean, absolutely critical. Some of the things I wouldn't focus on would include, and I know this is probably you say, what? I have an incentive grant. I have got to get my numbers up. Don't focus on the numbers. They will come. When you create this program and you build your culture, they will come. And don't worry about the size of the gift. value each gift, value each commitment, take it where it's coming from. And I think that will be the hallmark of your success.
Super. Yeah, again, builds off of, right, what you can control and what you can't control and do. And you can't control the numbers, you can't control the size, but you can deal with the results, which is fantastic and great. You know, in my career, professional career, and in my volunteer career, I'm a big person of prioritize, focus, dedicate your work, make decisions, and do. Right. And so, you know, each of us and the people on our webinar have in their lives many things which they're either told or they see are priorities and need to do and must do's and have do's. Again, things in your control, not in your control. So with this audience, and Susan, I'm going to start with you, then go to Linda and come back to Mindy. Why should Life and Legacy be an organization priority for us here as leaders? Why prioritize this, focus on this? What do you tell your organization, your leadership, your people in the community? Why is this that top priority?
That's a great question, Walter. Because we get a lot of priorities, obviously. And why this one would be a priority? Number one, it's intended to ensure the continuation of our Jewish community for the future, the Lador Vador, from generation to generation. In terms of a priority, it's a priority that isn't necessarily here and now, in the sense that you're asking people for money now, you're asking for the future. So it dovetails nicely with other things that you're doing. It's not going to push other things out of the way, in my view, nor should it. I think it's something that can be done in conjunction with your other priorities as an organization and as you look to the future. But essentially, if we want to survive, that's why it's a priority.
Great answer. Super. Thank you, Susan. Linda, why is it a priority?
Well, I think a philanthropic culture of any community has to be the norm. It's essential to any nonprofit's long-term financial stability. And in time, it will provide an annual distribution into perhaps an operating fund or a special designated fund or line item. And it allows for financial flexibility as needs change over time. We never know what those times may be. So it really must be part of every organization's culture. That's how I feel.
Thanks. Great, Linda. And great to know, and helpful learning for all of us as we go to deal with many different things in our professional and our nonprofit and giving lives. Mindy, I'll give you the last word on this particular one. Right?
I'm going to take a deep sigh first, because this is our biggest challenge. We are a 165-year-old congregation, and we didn't start Life and Legacy planning until 7 years ago. We do not have a culture of this being a priority. And it took first the team getting trained, and then us trying to get the rabbi and the board and the current leadership involved. And it was not and is not easy. We are a separate community, a separate committee trying to integrate this into the congregation. And we have had success, but each piece of our success has been hard fought. So we now have a once-a-year donor appreciation stewardship Shabbat and a donor appreciation Hanukkah dinner. Neither of those things happened before, and now they are like set but I'm still making sure that, you know, we're planning for them in an amount of time because it's not people's priority, because you got staff issues and you have a boiler problem and you have, you know, the day-to-day things. And so that's why we need Life and Legacy more than I can explain, because it isn't on people's agenda. And therefore we need to have this separate committee pushing and reminding, and maybe it's just part of the culture in some other places. But for us, we really needed to build that. We also started doing an integrated ask where, and I know I'm getting into one of the questions here, but it goes together, where when there was an initiative to raise extra funds for a certain project, I would talk to people about the 3 opportunities to give. You could give as a guardian for the excess needs, you know, additional dues for the now. You could give for tomorrow, which is this long-term project, or you could give for the long-term sustainability of the congregation to Life and Legacy. And what I found was, like one of my panelist colleagues said, when you have all the information, you really know what's going on in the synagogue, you can have this kind of conversation, is when I asked for an integrated gift, nobody said no. They said, I'll do this one or that one or these 2, but they didn't say no. But when I'm just doing a Life and Legacy ask, people will sometimes say no. And so by having more options, people might say, oh yeah, I'll give $500 more than my dues. And that's easier for them to do, they think, at that moment, than, you know, the other pieces. So an integrated ask really does help with getting the ability to do more than one thing at once, because this is my hardest hill, my biggest hill to climb.
That's great, right? And you were able to answer one of the questions. You're a good setup person for what I want to say before I ask my next one, which is we already have a few questions in the chat, which is great. Please, for the folks in the audience, our participants, throw your questions in the chat, and when we get to open forum, we'll deal with as many of them as we can. So please keep them coming. Linda, I'm going to start this next one with you, and then we'll go to Mindy and Susan. It's a question that we face not just with Life and Legacy, but really with anything in terms of leadership and organizations and membership, etc. How do you manage ongoing leadership transition and keeping Life and Legacy top of mind with all the continued turnover? Turnover is natural. Susan, to your point, one of the things that we may not be able to control. So how do you deal with that? Linda, your thoughts?
Yes, well, this certainly doesn't happen overnight. There's no question about that. It's an educational process for sure. I am really fortunate that our now board of directors has an assigned board member with a Life and Legacy portfolio. And that person, because we lead by example, must have made a leadership or Life and Legacy gift. Our finance committee has to be represented by a member of the Life and Legacy committee, whether it's the chair or designee. And we report regularly on what is in the endowment, as well as in our donation fund. We have an actual fund listed, just like there may be, I don't know, a kiddish fund, an education fund, a discretionary fund. But we have a fund in honor or memory of that people donate throughout the year. And these may be just small $18 high donations. And then we have several $1,000s at the end of our fiscal year that we move into our endowment fund. So it's almost like a special gift that comes in for that. Our Life and Legacy Committee meets monthly. Our minutes are circulated in the board packet each month, creating awareness of the committee activity. Our milestones, our programs, our celebrations are all shared regularly, not only in the board meeting, but congregational bulletins, annual meetings. Let's see. One of the recruitment issues of new LVS members, especially younger members, is a challenge. But we have developed a committee that includes a development background, a financial background, and a legal background. And they are role models who have proven themselves in our community, and that's helped to add to our success.
Thank you, Linda. Wonderful thoughts and great inputs for us to think about and consider. Mindy, how do you deal with, or how have you dealt with, right, in your successful time, right, with this continued turnover and leadership and life and legacy and keeping it going and moving with that turnover?
So when my predecessor took over as the first legacy chair, she was one out of past president, not the immediate past president, but the past president before. And she wisely said, I'll do it if you'll do it, to the past president. And the past president said to the current president, I'll do it if you'll do it. And so we have this leadership ladder that you're president for 2 years, you get 2 years of recovery, and then you're life and legacy chair after that for 2 years until the next person comes off of being immediate past president. And so we have a 6-person team, and 5 of them are past presidents of the congregation. That's our ladder.
Door of a door,
Yeah.
so to speak. That's great. Excellent. Susan, I'll let you have the last word and response on this one. And probably after you're done, I'll stop asking my questions and we'll turn to the open forum and the questions. But Susan, you've had much success, as you've talked about, and that success could not have come without dealing with turnover and constant recruitment. So how have you dealt with that? How do you deal with it?
So first of all, we have not had that much turnover in our committee. We're now in our 5th year. We brought some new people in just in this past year. Key is that the chair of the committee is a former past president who's involved and committed. One of the other committee members is also past president. Our rabbi is an active committee member, and he's invaluable in terms of giving us insight and on who we might ask. He will actually do the asks for some of them, and he's been quite successful. We had one past president who dropped off due to travel and other commitments, and we brought in 2 new members of the committee who one is a newer member of the congregation, but quite committed, and was a life and legacy member from within the last 2 years and within 2 years of joining. And then another one who's one of, I call, part of the younger generation, and has reach into a different set of contacts and people in the community. So in terms of, we haven't had that much turnover. So I haven't really thought about how to manage it. The connection to the board, as Linda mentioned, is important, and as Mindy mentioned, when I was treasurer, I was on the committee. We report regularly to the board on the updates. That's a reminder in the bulletins, and but just going to the leadership, it's a constant reminder to the board and the other leaders of the congregation to get involved or stay involved.
Great, Susan. Thank you. Before we turn to the questions of the group, I do have one other one that I want to ask you all for a very quick response to this one, so that we can then get back to the questions of the group. Mindy, Susan, Linda, we'll go in that order. A quick one for you. How do you work with other partners? So synagogues and/or agencies that are also doing life and legacy in your community, especially when you share prospects and donors. So as we go to ask our folks who we know, they're probably, or they should be, being asked by our partner organizations in the community for life and legacy. And so how do you work together to maximize not encroach necessarily on what might be a gift to another organization, but going and partnering together so that it benefits the community as well as your organization. Mindy, you got a quick one for that one?
Well, Federation is our natural partner because we receive so much support from Federation, and people are Federation members, so to speak, no matter, what else that they're interested in. So if they're giving to their home congregation, it's natural to ask them to give to Federation. But you can't ask somebody to give a gift to a place that they don't have a relationship with. So it really needs to be something that matters to them. Again, no prejudging, but if I am sitting with somebody and they give me the opportunity to sit with them as opposed to Zoom with them, then it's easy to look at the form and say, is there any other organization that's meaningful to you here? And to let them tell me why one of those organizations is meaningful to them. We have not had success with other, two synagogues or a JCC as much as we have with our Federation. It is a thrill when you find out that you've gotten a gift that you haven't worked for, right? When you get a call from another organization saying that, and to make that call to another organization, that is also a lot of fun. Our community didn't do a lot of working together before Life and Legacy, so we credit Grinspoon and our Life and Legacy team with helping us to work together. And again, Federation is a wonderful partner, and we thank them.
Excellent. Thanks, Mindy. Susan, a quick answer to that one, right? Minute or so.
Yeah, very
Linda.
quick answer. I mean, the letter of intent form we use lists all the organizations. We have a lot of cross-pollination with members of our committee have been on, I'm on Federation's board, people on the Jewish Family Service Board. So we've had gifts, as Mindy said, some that come into us because somebody else solicited it, and I'm sure that we solicit some that go out. So I don't see it as anything but a plus in working with other organizations.
Great. Linda, I'll give you the final word on this one, and then we'll move on to our questions from the audience.
Happy to do so. So in terms of working with our other partners, we meet with our cohort groups several times a year, both for trainings and for celebrations. And we also help to serve as mentors now for our next cohort. So that is as far as the working piece. But as far as sharing prospects and donors, just like Susan said, our declaration of commitment from our community forms lists all the organizations that a donor can give to. But we see this as helping to develop a camaraderie and a respect among our organizations. We're so supportive and grateful for all of these gifts, and just delighted that our community is strengthened by the many gifts that it receives. So we share a common goal of legacy building for the entire community, and many of the donors have made commitments to multiple organizations.
Thank you, Linda. Susan, I'm going to turn to you first and only on this one, because that was one of the first questions asked. So if you can address this question, you talked about endowments and legacy gifts. Are there two separate programs, and what are the incentives there? You can give us a
no, I use those terms interchangeably. A legacy gift goes to one of our endowment funds. We have several endowment funds. Some are specific purpose, like for camp scholarships, but we, even prior to this program, we had one of our endowment funds was a legacy fund, and so it just adds to our endowment.
Great.
We
Mindy,
do
you want to
differentiate.
weigh in there?
Yeah, we do differentiate. A life and legacy gift goes into our unrestricted endowment, and our legacy and our endowment gifts can go to something that's specifically for a purpose, not just the general fund that's going to be funded by the endowment. I hope that makes sense. So it's really about what the donor wants, whether it is going to go, like if it's going to go into a scholarship fund or a flower fund or something, that's a gift to endowment. But if it's going to go and come out for use in the annual budget of the future years, then it can be a life and legacy gift for us.
Got it. Linda, anything you want to weigh in on there before we get to the next question?
The only thing I can say is we only have one true endowment, and that is our Life and Legacy Endowment. We have several named funds in the congregation, but I think part of this is knowing as an organization what your donation and gift policy is. Do you have a windfall policy so you know where those funds may go? And well, I'll leave it there. I'll leave it right there.
Great. Leave them wanting more, Linda. That's great. Next question that we got is a question for all of you. So Linda, I'll actually start with you. We'll go back to Mindy and Susan if we're weighing in. How do you handle asking for promises when the organization is also conducting fundraising for current projects? I think one of you may have talked a little bit about this, but if you could expand on that. I think, Mindy, you may have talked about the integrated ask. So I'll ask Linda and Susan, please weigh in with your response on that one.
It's a tough one. I'll be really honest, especially when fundraising is a priority and budget responsibilities. I have to go back to education on this one, and reprioritizing and looking what the budget is. And, I know we have a gala every year. I had, for the first time last year, something I'm very proud of, that I had the board agree at the end of the fiscal year to look at their funds. And we were able to get an additional $25,000 to be put into the endowment fund. But competing with fundraising is very difficult, and it's a process, and it takes time and a lot of education. I don't have a really good, simple answer on this one.
Susan?
Yeah, I agree with Linda. It's not easy. So the Life and Legacy is part of our overall development committee, and our head of our development committee is a seasoned professional in terms of fundraising, and it's one of those things where I think you just have to be cognizant of who you're asking, when you're asking, and what you're asking, and trying to be sensitive to what the person being asked is being asked to do in other senses. So again, it's not easy, but it's something you need to be sensitive to.
Super. Are the number of promises, Mindy, we'll start with you, and we'll jump to Susan and then Linda. The question is, are the number of promises coming more in the way of trusts, IRA gifts, others? The questioner says, I assume most are at death of the donor, but how many are current, either as a percentage of gifts or dollars? Can you talk about what you're seeing coming in? And then Susan, we'll turn to you and Linda to weigh in as well.
So I've been surprised that a lot of people are giving now and not waiting. We have people who are giving from their IRAs, and some are allowing us to use the money now, and some are saying, no, hold on to it until after I pass. We have had 3 people pass away since we started this program, and I want to just share a little about the reality of what happened, because I think it's fascinating. So the first person who died wasn't part of our congregation, but part of the community. They were our JCC chair for Life and Legacy. And when he died, he had not formalized his gift. So here he's out asking other people to make gifts, and he hadn't formalized his own. And the JCC didn't receive anything. So I tell that as a cautionary tale. If you want your wishes to be done, you actually have to formalize. And then from our congregation, the first person who passed away, she had formalized. The money came into the congregation from her will. She left, I think it was like $60,000. And we stewarded her daughter and thanked her daughter for the gift, even though it came from the mother's will. She only had one daughter. And the daughter was so inspired by what her mother had done that she made her own gift out of the money that she received from her mom, because of this program. She knew what her mom wanted. So that was a beautiful thing. And then the person who was on our committee also passed away. And so here we had, a leader in our own little subcommittee very suddenly passed with no warning, and nothing came in. And again, he was our person reaching out and asking other people to make commitments. And months and months and months passed, and I caught something on Facebook where his son posted that his father died without a will and without any insurance. And I was shocked. And then after a few more months, we got money. We got a stock that he had put into the congregation would be a beneficiary of this stock. So another example of somebody who didn't have a lot of means and took care of it and was able to do what he wanted to do and leave a lasting legacy. And those are the three stories that I can share of what has happened in reality. And we have received almost $100,000 in cash from people now who are still alive and part of our community that we can thank, as well as lots of promises. Our promises that I know of, and there might be more because not everybody shares, range from $100,000, and we're a mid-sized upstate New York community. Okay, we're not the city area, so for us this is a lot of money. So we have $100,000 gifts, and we have gifts as low as $350. But we graciously say thank you to all of them. And we also have gifts where people say a percentage of life insurance or their entire estate. But I have no idea what that means, their entire estate. I mean, that could be practically nothing, or it could be huge. So I guess the moral of my story is everybody's unique and everybody's different. And we just smile and say thank you and take all opportunities to let people be philanthropists. Thank you.
And no prejudgment, back to your earlier point, right?
Right.
Susan, can you give us a quick answer to that one? We may have time after this for one more question, but I want to let this one play out with you and Linda.
Sure. I'll just say it kind of runs the gambit. I really can't say that most, I would assume a lot are legacy gifts in people's wills, but we've also received cash. We had one donor who did pass away in the interim, and he received that legacy gift. We do have some life insurance that's been donated, so the congregation actually owns the policies. And there are, I think, maybe a few IRA gifts, but I think it kind of runs the gambit.
And
Gotcha.
I would agree with my colleagues a little bit, but I do see a fair amount of a fixed number, of what people want to give. And also, I think, Mindy, you said it, we're seeing lifetime gifts. People want to give their gift now. They want to see it used. They want to see it realized. They want to benefit our community now. And we use that in our conversations, that is an option as well, if that's something that they feel more comfortable with. A lifetime gift as well as an after lifetime gift is certainly an option for them.
I think that's a real important point, right? Sometimes our assumption or our prejudgment is that life and legacy is a gift for after you pass. And what I think you're all saying is, you know what, it doesn't just have to be that. A life and legacy gift could be a while you're alive type of situation. Thank you. Great stuff. Going to throw a lightning round question at you as our final question, and ask you to take 1 minute to answer it. So a little bit of a challenge that we wrap up. I forget which order I was in before, but I'll just do Susan, Linda, Mindy, and give you a minute each. How has past leadership responded to life and legacy? And how important do you think it is engaging past leaderships in your efforts? Susan, a minute, Linda, a minute, Mindy, a minute. Go for it.
Yeah, I'll start it. So I don't even need a minute. It's critical. Our past leadership has been fully on board. I think almost every past president has made a life and legacy commitment. There's maybe one exception, and that's because of unusual family circumstances. So having leadership involved is key. And as president of the board, I encourage everyone at my board meetings to join me, and then we have some fun parties that they can join in, or interesting gifts. One of our I knew I said I wouldn't take more than a minute, but we did a really cool gift that was a bookmark that our cantor had done the artwork for, and we had it laminated, and we sent it out with as like a Hanukkah greeting for our stewardship. And I passed it around to the board and said, and you too can get one of these next year. So
That's great. Thanks, Susan. Well worth the extra part of the minute. Thank you. Linda?
I totally agree. Our leadership has embraced the entire program. As far as I can remember, all of our presidents are definitely have their legacies in place. Remember, it started as a financial incentive, and anyone who said no, who said what? So everyone was on board. And remember, leaders are the ones who know your congregants best. And they're the ones who are setting the role modeling. And I agree with everything that's being said. Our leadership is 100% bought in.
Thanks. Mindy, last word to you, and then I'm going to turn it back to our to Linda Mizell to close this out. Go ahead, Mindy.
Yes, leadership is important, but future leadership is extremely important too. So thanks to everybody for listening and being a part of this.
Well, I'll wrap it up here and turn it over back to our to Linda and Mark. Thank you. This is, again, I learned so much. I hope I know our audience learned so much by your great experiences, and not only thanking you for being part of the panel, which I'm sure you'll hear again, but thank you for what you've done and contributed and led and made happen. And you all are great examples for us to follow and learn from. And it's been an extreme pleasure getting a chance to bounce questions off of you, try and stump the band, and I couldn't do it. You were all terrific. Linda, I'll turn it back to you to close.
Thank you, Wally. And thank you for your dedication and your willingness to serve as the moderator this evening. This was a great panel. I want to thank everyone in the audience for joining us this evening, and a recording of this program will be available next week. We will let you know about that. Thank you to our panelists, Mindy Holland, Susan Costin, and Linda Moskowitz, for sharing their time and reflections. Really great ideas. I was taking lots of notes, so thank you so much. Thank you again, Mark, to the Jewish Federation of Princeton Mercer Bucks for its financial support of Life and Legacy programming this year. We encourage you to stay abreast of our sponsor, Jewish Federation of Princeton Mercer Bucks, as well as the Jewish Community Foundation. Please visit our respective websites and social media pages. A few plugs for some upcoming programs. Join us at our Institutional Investment Roundtable on April 3rd at 7 p.m. If you or someone from your organization would like to learn more about how we manage the assets of institutional funds here at the foundation, including the legacy funds, consider joining us at in Springfield, Massachusetts for the annual Life and Legacy Conference hosted by the Harold Grinspoon Foundation. It's May 5th through May 7th. Some of our panelists will be there, I hope. Amy and I will be there. Amy Zox, who is our Director of Philanthropy, will be a presenter at the conference. We're very excited about that. And one thing about the Grinspoon Gathering is that they bring some of the best minds in fundraising and legacy giving to the table. So I encourage everyone to think about joining us. And finally, please complete the post-event survey that you will be sent by email this week. We really value your feedback, and we want to make sure that whatever programs we put on in the future are things that you will be interested in. So, and our last reminder, on May 23rd, we are hosting the 60th anniversary and Life and Legacy celebration of the Jewish Community Foundation. The invitation went out electronically yesterday. This will be a lovely evening of celebrating our past leadership and honoring legacy giving. So please join us. Good night, everyone.